You did not have to stop. Everyone else kept walking.
Everyone else wasn't paying attention.
The job posting had been up for 11 days before Talon Voss answered it. That was not unusual. Jobs like this, escort through the ash flats, 3 days minimum, dangerous terrain, difficult conditions, client described only as a single traveler requiring discreet passage to the Ven border, sat on the board for a long time. The ash flats were not forgiving. The Ven border was not friendly. And discreet passage, in the language of the posting boards, meant the kind of work that came with complications nobody wanted to explain in writing. Talon had been doing this kind of work for 9 years. He was 43 years old, built like someone who had survived a number of things that should have finished him, and possessed of the particular quality that difficult jobs required most. Not strength, not speed, but the willingness to still be there when things went sideways. He answered the posting on a Tuesday. The client meeting was set for the following morning, at the edge of the flats, at a way station so old its name had worn off the sign. He arrived first and waited. She arrived on foot. That was his first indication that something was different. Clients who could afford his rates arrived with transport. She walked out of the early morning haze of the flats like she had been walking for a while, dressed in the rough wrapped gray clothing of a common traveler. Her dark hair cutting across her forehead in a short blunt way that was entirely impractical for desert travel and somehow suited her completely. She was Vaethi. He could tell from the ears, from the slight blue-gray cast of her skin. Young or seeming young. Violet eyes that assessed him the way a general assesses a map, quickly and with more comprehension than the speed suggested. She had no baggage. She had no visible weapons. She had a wrist wrapped in makeshift cloth that was doing a poor job of covering what looked like a several-day-old injury. "You answered," she said without preamble. "I answered," he agreed. Everyone else on the board declined. She said it without accusation, just information. "I'm aware." She looked at him for a moment longer. Then she said, "My name is Mira. I need to reach the Ven border crossing at Dust Gate. 3 days through the flats. I will pay the posted rate in full, in advance." "Sit down," Talon said, nodding at the table outside the way station. "Let me look at that wrist first." She looked at him. Then she sat. He unwrapped the makeshift bandaging and examined the injury without comment. A deep laceration, several days old, improperly cleaned, the beginning of something that would cause serious problems if left another 2 days. He had a kit. He always had a kit. He cleaned it properly, applied what he had, and rewrapped it with actual bandaging from his pack. She watched him the entire time with those violet eyes, and she didn't make a sound, even when the cleaning hurt. "You've been walking for 3 days already," he said. It wasn't a question. "4," she said. "From where?" "From where I started." He accepted that. Some clients gave information. Some didn't. His job was the same either way. They left within the hour and moved into the flats. The ash flats were exactly what they sounded like. A vast expanse of pale salt and mineral dust that stretched between the collapsed territories of the old Vaethi settlements and the Ven border. 3 days of featureless white broken by the occasional ruin and the constant wind that moved the surface in slow patterns like something breathing. It was disorienting even for people who knew it. For people who didn't, it was a place where you walked in circles until you stopped. Talon knew it the way he knew the lines on his own hands. Mira kept pace without complaint. She was stronger than she looked. He revised that estimate upward steadily across the first day, and she moved with an economy of motion that spoke of training, the kind that had been so thoroughly absorbed it no longer looked like training. "You're not a common traveler," he said on the first evening, while they made camp in the shelter of a ruined stone structure that had been somebody's something before the collapse. "No," she said. "You're not going to tell me what you are. Not yet." "All right," he said, and handed her the better portion of the evening ration, which she accepted without protest, which told him she was hungry enough to set aside whatever instinct would normally have made her decline. On the second day they were found. Talon had been expecting it. The kind of work that came with no explanation almost always came with followers, and 4 days of solo travel across the flats left tracks that someone sufficiently motivated could read. There were 3 of them, Vaethi, armed and moving with professional coordination, and they came over Assault Ridge at mid-morning with the specific energy of people who had been tracking something and were pleased to have found it. They were looking at Mira. Talon put himself between her and them before he had consciously decided to. What followed was 11 minutes that he would later describe to the one person he told as complicated. He was outnumbered and he knew the terrain, and he had 9 years of experience with situations that should have finished him. 2 of the 3 pursuers left on their own feet, moving fast in the direction they'd come from. The third required more persuasion. When it was over, Mira was standing exactly where he'd left her, and she was looking at him with an expression he couldn't read at first, and then could because he had seen it before, on people who had spent a long time being careful about who they trusted and had just recalculated. "Thank you," she said. "Still 3 days' work," he said, checking his kit. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "They will send more." "Probably," he agreed. "How many more?" "That depends on who ordered it." He paused. "Which depends on how much they know about where I'm going." "Where are you going?" he asked. "Actually." She looked at him for a long moment with those violet eyes, and he had the same feeling he'd had at the way station, that she was running a calculation that had more variables than he could see. "Dust Gate," she said. "And then to the Ven Council chamber. I have a meeting." "With the council?" "I am the meeting," she said quietly. "I am Queen Mira Vaethi-Sol, 7th of my line. There is a succession crisis in progress, and certain parties would prefer I not arrive to resolve it." She said it the way she said everything, plainly without performance, watching his face.